On a quiet street in a small American town, nestled between a bakery and a barber shop, stood the Maple Street Library. Its red bricks had weathered decades, its green shutters slightly faded by the sun, and the large wooden door creaked with history every time it opened. That summer, 12-year-old Zoe Washington pushed that door open with the curiosity of someone looking for more than just books. Her parents were separating and everything felt uncertain. She needed a place to think, to breathe. Inside, the air smelled like paper and polish, a scent both strange and comforting. The tall wooden bookshelves loomed like ancient guardians, whispering stories to those willing to listen. At the front desk sat Mr. Lionel, a gray-haired man in a cardigan who smiled as if he'd been expecting her. "First time here?" he asked warmly. Zoe nodded. "Then you're in for an adventure." He led her to a quiet corner near the back, marked with a small wooden sign, "Dreamers and Doers." It was a collection of biographies, memoirs, and true stories of people who had once been kids like her, with dreams bigger than their towns. Zoe pulled out a book with a bright blue cover and sat cross-legged on the carpet. She didn't know it yet, but this small moment would shape her future in ways she could never imagine. Zoe returned the next day. And the next. The Dreamers and Doers shelf became her favorite place in the world. Every book she picked up was like a window into a world of possibility. She read about Katherine Johnson and her calculations that sent astronauts to space. She read about Steve Jobs building Apple in a garage. She even read about kids who'd started charities before they turned 13. Each story planted a seed. At night, Zoe began writing in a journal she called her dream book. She doodled ideas for apps and websites. One idea stuck: a digital space for kids going through hard times, divorce, bullying, loneliness, where they could read inspiring stories, write their own, and connect with mentors. One afternoon, Mr. Lionel noticed her scribbling with fierce concentration. "What are you working on?" he asked. When she explained, his eyes sparkled. "You should enter that into the Youth Innovation Fair next month," he said. "It's exactly what the world needs." Zoe hesitated. She had never spoken in front of a crowd. Her parents barely spoke to each other. What if nobody understood? But Mr. Lionel just smiled. Every big dream starts with a little courage. Zoe signed up for the fair. For weeks, she worked tirelessly. Her bedroom transformed into a war zone of index cards, wireframes, and glitter glue for her presentation board. Her mom helped when she could between work shifts, offering words of encouragement. Her dad, though, remained distant. The day of the fair arrived. Zoe wore her favorite yellow dress and tried to hide her shaking hands. Kids from across the district filled the school gymnasium with their projects: robots, compost gardens, homemade drones. Zoe set up her booth with her journal, mock-ups of her website, and the title, "The Dream Space, a Home for Young Hearts." When it was her turn to present, Zoe stepped up to the microphone, heart pounding. She took a deep breath and remembered Mr. Lionel's words. Her voice trembled at first but grew steadier as she spoke about her vision, a place where kids could find hope, learn about heroes, and share their stories. The judges nodded thoughtfully. When the awards were announced, Zoe won third place. But the real reward was the crowd of people who stopped to talk afterward, asking how they could help or get involved. For the first time in months, Zoe felt not just seen but heard. Zoe walked into the Maple Street Library with a ribbon in her hand and a fire in her chest. Mr. Lionel stood at the front desk, beaming. "Told you," he said, giving her a wink. Together, they brainstormed how to turn her idea into something real. Mr. Lionel helped her connect with a local coding mentor, Ms. Nguyen, who taught Zoe how to build a basic site. They held weekly meetings in the library's reading room, slowly bringing Dreamspace to life. Zoe still had hard days. Days when her parents argued or when her homework piled up. But she kept going because now she had something bigger to believe in. She even started reading to younger kids during library story hour, choosing stories from the Dreamers and Doers shelf. One evening, as the sun poured golden light through the stained glass windows, Mr. Lionel sat beside her and said, "You're not just reading history anymore, Zoe. You're becoming it." Those words stuck with her. She wasn't just surviving her story, she was writing it. 8th grade brought new challenges. Zoe's schedule was packed with school, her part-time site updates, and helping her mom at home. Her father had moved out of town and stopped calling. The spark she once had began to dim. She hadn't visited the library in weeks. Dreamspace sat untouched. One rainy afternoon, Zoe walked by the library and noticed a sign, "Closed for renovation." She stood in the drizzle, staring. Her sanctuary, the place that changed everything, was closed. She felt a wave of panic. Without the library, without Mr. Lionel, who had since quietly retired, she felt lost. That night she opened her dream book. Dust coated the cover. She flipped through her drawings and ideas, now yellowing with time. A tear slid down her cheek. She had almost forgotten the girl who believed in building something beautiful. She needed that girl back. 2 weeks later, the Maple Street Library reopened. Brighter, freshly painted, and full of energy. Zoe walked in cautiously, expecting everything to feel unfamiliar. But there it was, her old corner, her favorite window seat, and something new. A fresh bookshelf stood in the heart of the library, under a bold sign. Zoe's Picks, Dreamers and Doers for a New Generation. Her journal sat on the shelf, laminated and preserved. Alongside it were books she'd recommended over the years, plus a brand new one, The Story of Dreamspace, written by a local reporter who'd followed Zoe's journey. A note on the shelf read, "To Zoe Washington, who proved that a dream and a library can change a life, and maybe even the world." Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were happy ones. Mr. Lionel might have retired, but he'd left behind something timeless. Belief in her. Zoe, now in high school, made it a mission to mentor younger kids. Every Friday afternoon she hosted Story Hour with Zoe, sharing tales from her favorite books and encouraging kids to write their own. One afternoon, a shy third grader named Mateo told her he wanted to become president. Zoe laughed and said, "Start by reading about Abraham Lincoln." The boy beamed. Zoe also revived Dreamspace, redesigning it with new tools, forums, and video stories from kids nationwide. She partnered with schools to introduce it as part of their emotional learning programs. She even gave a TEDx talk in her town, the same shy girl who once trembled at a science fair mic. Kids looked up to her now, and she looked back at them with pride. Every child she met became a new book waiting to be written. Years later, Zoe returned home after graduating with honors in computer science. She had founded a non-profit, Maple Dreamers, dedicated to empowering youth through storytelling and tech. The Maple Street Library now had a bronze plaque at its entrance, in honor of all young dreamers, especially Zoe Washington, who turned a story into a movement. She stepped inside, greeted by the smell of paper and polish. Children filled the space, laughter and voices echoing between shelves. Her shelf, Zoe's Picks, had grown into an entire wing. As she walked through the aisles, she passed Mateo, now a high schooler, helping a new kid find a book. Zoe smiled. It all started with one open door, one quiet corner, one old librarian who believed, and one girl who read her way into changing the world.